Bears fans, I can't believe that I'm about to actually say this, but the tide is actually turning here in Chicago. And today's episode of Geek on the Mic starts right now.
You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Geek on the Mic. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Geek on the Mic. You can go and subscribe cause I be on it right. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Geek on the Mic.
Hey, what's going on, Bears fans? Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Geek on the Mic, the podcast all about the Chicago Bears. First and foremost, happy Saturday to every single one of you guys. We are only one day away until Bears football is officially back at Soldier Field as they take on the New York Giants. The Chicago Bears are currently sitting at 5-3, and with a win over the Giants, they will be firmly in playoff contention as they enter the very tough stretch of their schedule. But Bears fans, before we go any further with today's episode of Geek on the Mic, I do want to make a quick announcement that I will be back for a live play-by-play plus reaction stream for the Bears versus Giants tomorrow. I know that I've been absent for the last couple of weeks, but I will be back tomorrow, so hopefully you guys will join me for my live stream. I'll probably start about around 9:30 a.m. PST, so I cannot wait to see you guys there. But Bears fans, we need to have a conversation on this beautiful Saturday morning, one day before the Bears take on the New York Giants, because as we all know, our general manager in Ryan Poles has never been afraid to wheel and deal. Leading up to the trade deadline, I know that we're past the trade deadline, but I do want to share this with you guys just to get you guys a reaction on today's episode of Geek on the Mic. We all know that Ryan Poles has never been afraid to make big trades, especially for the betterment of this organization. But apparently, Ben Johnson actually stopped Ryan Poles from any reckless trades prior to the trade deadline. Ryan Poles actually echoed this sentiment of our head coach doing this in a press conference prior to the trade deadline. And this is what he had to say, Bears fans. He says, "I think they closed a pretty big gap with this new staff, so that gets me even more excited and gets Ben excited to watch our coaches work with these young players that we draft, that are young now, that we draft in the future to have a big role on our team. A lot of the times you get into these moments and you get tunnel vision about right now. What do I need to do?" Poles says. His ability to see short-term and long-term for us to be able to have those conversations is, as a front office person, really awesome to have. Not only him, but also defensive coordinator Dennis Allen too, who has been in that head coaching chair, to see the big picture and how we want to build this football team. They have a really good understanding of it, which is good. Bears fans, this makes my heart so happy as a Bears fan. As we all know, after the trade deadline concluded for the National Football League, an instant report came out that the Chicago Bears were in on New York Jets edge rusher Jermaine Johnson. Obviously, the New York Jets were looking for a second-round pick, and we can all agree that that price was way too high. My question is, let's say Matt Eberflus was still the head coach of the Chicago Bears, and general manager Ryan Poles was obviously making all the decisions for this football team as the general manager of the organization. Can we all agree that Ryan Poles would have probably made that stupid trade to send a second-round pick for an edge rusher that only has one sack on the season? I think we can all agree that he would have done that. But this is where Ben Johnson and even Dennis Allen comes into play. They are seeing not only the short-term vision of this team, but the long-term vision of this team. They are not going to allow Ryan Poles to make any more stupid decisions that will hurt the long-term success of this football team. So let's give a huge shout out not only to Ben Johnson, but also to Dennis Allen. They understand if this football team wants long-term success, you have to be able not only to draft well and not only these high rounds 1 and 2, but you also need to be able to draft in the later rounds as well. For example, Kyle Monangai in round 7. Ben Johnson and the rest of this coaching staff, their job is to develop this young talent to make sure the Chicago Bears have long-term success. And that is exactly what the Chicago Bears are doing currently. For example, look at guys like Aji Trapillo. Look at guys like Theo Benedict as well. Guys like Dan Rochar have been doing a really good job of developing this young talent on the offensive line. You look at what the receiver room is doing with their new coach. You're looking at what Caleb Williams is doing with Ben Johnson. You're looking at all the young talent on the Chicago Bears roster and how they are being developed the right way. But personally, Bears fans, it really doesn't surprise me that Ben Johnson is having these tough conversations with Ryan Poles, saying, look, I understand that it would be nice to go out and get Max Crosby or Trey Hendrickson or maybe a guy like Jermaine Johnson, but let's not mortgage the long-term future, and let's continue to keep our high draft capital and our high picks for the 2026 NFL draft and beyond, and continue to draft this young talent. And just trust me, Ryan Poles, just trust the coaching staff that I brought in here to develop these players the right way to have long-term success in this organization. But once again, Bears fans, it does not surprise me, because look at where Ben Johnson came from. The Detroit Lions have done a really good job of not only drafting really well, but just trusting Dan Campbell and their coaching staff to develop the players the right way. And now look at the Detroit Lions are set up for long-term success. They are known as a true NFC contender and a Super Bowl contender for years to come, just because of how well the GM for the Detroit Lions has drafted and how well Dan Campbell and that coaching staff over there in Detroit has developed their talent the right way. So now we get a guy in Ben Johnson that is bringing that same sentiment from Detroit and bringing it over here to Chicago, and he's doing things the right way. As frustrating as it was of the inactivity from the Chicago Bears, even though they are 5-3, he is trying to make sure that Ryan Poles doesn't make that Ryan Pace mistake. He could easily went out and got Jermaine Johnson for a second-round pick. He could easily went out and traded a first-round pick for Trey Hendrickson. Yes, it would have been good for the Chicago Bears right now. Those players would have probably helped the Chicago Bears make a playoff push. But for the long-term success over this organization, I understand what Ben Johnson is trying to do. And it also confirms the rumor that Ben Johnson has more control than we thought, right? We brought in Ben Johnson as the head coach of the Chicago Bears, and we all thought that Ryan Poles was going to be making the final say, but no, this is Ben Johnson's team here in Chicago. He is really making the final calls and the personnel decisions for what's best for the Chicago Bears, and I am absolutely all for it, because I see the long-term vision of the Chicago Bears. Keep your draft picks, draft well, and trust your coaches to develop the right way. And thank God for Ben Johnson, because I know for sure that Ryan Poles would have traded that second-round pick for Jermaine Johnson, and it would have probably been just an absolute shit show. Johnson would have come to Chicago, and he may have been good for the rest of this season, but then we miss out on possibly a very good player in the NFL draft in round 2. So Bears fans, just wanted to share that with you guys on today's episode of Keek on the Mic. Let me know your initial thoughts of Ben Johnson stopping Ryan Poles from making a reckless trade at the trade deadline. I cannot wait to hear from you guys. But Bears fans, before I let you guys go on today's episode of Keek on the Mic, I want to just do a quick rapid fire remainder of the season for the Bears record prediction. As we all know, the Chicago Bears are currently 5-3, but they have the games against the Giants, Vikings, Steelers, Eagles, Packers twice, Browns, 49ers, and Lions to finish off the season. So before I give my final rest of the season record prediction for the Chicago Bears, let me know down below in the comment section what your final record prediction for the Bears will be at the end of the season. Do you believe the Bears can make one final push to make the playoffs for the first time, I believe, since 2020 with Matt Nagy? Let me know down below in the comment section. So here we go. The Chicago Bears are currently 5-3. And as it stands, I truly feel that the one big concern for this Bears team until they get healthy on that side of the football is our defense. I feel that Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson, and the Bears offense will have to outscore a lot of these teams in order for the Chicago Bears to get some wins. So here we go. Week 10 against the Giants. I think that's going to be a win. They move on to 6-3. The Giants defense, 29th in total yards allowed, 28th in points. I think the Bears can outscore that team. And then I think we get a revenge game with the Minnesota Vikings. I think they beat the Vikings in Minnesota in week 11 to go to 7-3. Vikings 15 in total yards on defense, 20th in points. And then I think they have a little letdown against Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I really wish I could make this a win, because I would love to see the Chicago Bears beat Aaron Rodgers at Soldier Field. We all know what's going to happen. I think the sky is going to be falling if Aaron Rodgers comes into Chicago and beats us once again. But I think it fits the narrative too perfectly for Aaron Rodgers to continue his ownership of the Chicago Bears. I think we lose that game. Then the sky is really going to be falling. Black Friday football, week 13 at Philadelphia. I also think that's going to be a loss for the Chicago Bears. Now they're sitting at 7-5, and I feel like the whole Bears fan base on social media is going to be going crazy. But then Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears have a huge bounce back win in a place where Caleb Williams has never lost, Bears fans. I think he beats the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau Field to go to 8-5. Then I think we come back home to Soldier Field and beat the Cleveland Browns to move to 9-5. Now the Chicago Bears fan base is back on board, and the Chicago Bears are in the thick of the wild card race at 9-5. And then I think we do split with the Green Bay Packers. We have a letdown at home at Soldier Field. Now the Chicago Bears are 9-6. But on Sunday Night Football against the San Francisco 49ers, Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears get a huge win against the 49ers on primetime football in Santa Clara to move to 10-6. And then with everything on the line, and this could possibly be for the division, and I hate to say this, I think week 18 at home against the Lions, I think we get swept by the Detroit Lions. I think that game earlier in the year where the defense gave up 52 points is still scarring me for life. I am not sure if we can outscore the Lions if it does come down to that. I think we lose to the Detroit Lions, get swept. But overall, the Bears go 10-7. They make the wild card probably as a 7 or 6 seed, and we make the playoffs for the first time since 2020. So Bears fans, that is my final prediction, 10-7. That means the Chicago Bears would have to go 5-4 in the remainder 9 games of the schedule. Yes, it looks tough on paper, but I am going to trust Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams, and this top 10 scoring offense in the National Football League to get it done. Hopefully our defense can get a little bit healthy with Kyler Gordon. Maybe we get Jalen Johnson back in early or maybe late December to really help us push for this playoff push. But overall, I can definitely see the Chicago Bears going 10-7, maybe even 9-8, and making the playoffs, which would be huge for this organization, especially in Ben Johnson's first season as the Bears head coach. Once again, Bears fans, let me know down below what you guys think the final Bears record prediction will be for the remainder of the season. I cannot wait to hear from you guys. But other than that, Bears fans, make sure you guys continue to hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Make sure you follow me on all my social media platforms, and make sure you share this episode of Keek on the Mic with every single Bears fan that you know. But other than that, be back for an all-new Bears podcast right here on Keek on the Mic. Thanks, guys, and as always, bear down.
Cali the shot town is Bears on the flight. Let me go tune in to Keek on the Mic. He gon' make sure we get our news and highlights. When you get on YouTube, you better hit the like.